It's 7 p.m. and I'd like to call the regular meeting of Oregon City Council for June 10th, 2024 to order. If you would join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Ms. Snyder, would you please take a roll call for council?
Mrs. Ackerman? Here. Mr. Drake?
Here.
Mr. Horniak?
Here.
Mrs. Pauloff?
Here.
Mr. Reeves?
Here.
Mr. Solander?
Here.
Mr. Wollensack?
Here. Thank you. Please note that all council members are here for the meeting this evening. Also present at tonight's meeting is Mayor Michael Safarian, City Administrator Joel Mazer, Interim Clerk of Council Josette Snyder, Law Director Melissa Purpura, Public Service Director Paul Roman, Assistant Chief of Police Ryan Spangler, Fire Chief Clayton O'Brien, Assistant Chief Mark Mullins, and Finance Director Nick Roman. We thank everybody for being here this evening. First item we have on our agenda for this evening is going to be the minutes. We have the approval of the minutes from the May 28th, 2024 regular council meeting. Council?
Mr. President,
Mr. Reeves.
I move for passage or approval of the minutes from May 28th, 2024 regular council meeting as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves. Second. Seconded by Mr. Drake. We have a motion by Mr. Reeves, seconded by Mr. Drake for approval of the minutes. Council, any objections? Hearing none, the minutes from the May 28th, 2024 regular council meeting are approved as presented. Moving into our agenda, first item that we have for this evening is persons and delegations. And folks, as we've been doing this throughout the past several months with this, we do have a number of people sign in to speak. So I'd ask everybody to try to keep your comments to 3 to 5 minutes. At about 3-4 minutes, either myself or Josette will give you a wave, just have you kind of start wrapping up. That'll give everybody an opportunity to make sure that they can address council this evening. So with that said, the first person we have is Randy Roberts. And we'll have you say your name and your address, please.
Good evening. My name is Randy Roberts. I live at 4148 Stonehenge in Sylvania, Ohio. The reason why I'm here is I work for an organization called Hooves. And basically what we do is we take rescue horses and we use those horses, we get them back to health. And then once we have done that, we use the horses for rescuing veterans with PTSD. We're a nonprofit, and basically what we do is we solicit, grants and things like that. Well, one of the things that we would like to do this year that we've never done before is we want to have a symposium here. And we've actually rented OH Stables and we've rented Maumee Bay. And it's going to be September the 5th through the 8th. We're going to bring in some wild Mustangs to be gentled while they're here. We're going to bring in professional trainers. We're going to have a suicide awareness breakfast. So many of you may know that September is Suicide Awareness Month. So that's why we picked that month to do it. We're going to have auctions. We're going to bring in art dealers from all over the United States, bringing in Western art. We're going to have a panel of professional equine trainers coming in, and we're going to have a gala, a Western gala. It'll be formal. It'll be a charity event, and a lot of other things. So the main reason why I'm coming to talk to you is first of all, for awareness, so that you understand that we want to do this. And then second of all, ask for your support to help us to be able to accomplish it. Well, I've already met with the gentleman who owns OH Stables. We went through a laundry list of things we need to do in order to get that facility ready. That will be going on, and we'll also be over at Maumee Bay. Now, one of the things which we didn't realize when we booked this was that there's a wedding going on there. So only half of the rooms available are usable. So what we're going to do is we're going to push everybody to Oregon to start renting rooms there. Obviously, they'll be eating in Oregon. So that'll help generate revenue for you. So does anybody have any questions for me? No? If I may, Steve, I've just got some brochures and stuff for you.
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And we'll see that council members get copies of what you have here if you don't have enough for everybody. Is that if you could? Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Next person I have is Doug Herman. And again, Mr. Herman, we just ask you to state your name and your address for the record, please.
Good evening. Doug Herman, 326 Grasser Street. I'm the third entity in the Grasser Street chaos that's taking place. I just have a few things I'd like to address. I don't know how many of you were present on this board 20 years ago, but would it be possible to pull up the picture from the meeting on 4/8 of the view of Grasser Street looking northward? Would that be possible? The information I need to give you is, I think with a visual, maybe easier to understand. Okay.
That would be a little tough right now.
Okay. Let me move on. I'll get back to that. Let me move on to the second thing. The right to work for Mr. Toffel, I think his name is, was granted to him on May 29th. Okay. A week later, last Friday, Mr. Mentoffel shows up. He did park on the curb, but he was parked the wrong direction. Okay, so I hear a chainsaw fire up. And if he's on his own property, cutting down trees, that's his business, but he was in the right of way, which he had the right, he got permission to do that, but he was parked illegally. So my neighbors called the police. Police show up. They question Mr. Shane, and the gentleman he had with him, that was his vehicle that was parked illegally. So I think he kind of set this guy up, but Shane was a little combative with the female officer that showed up. So then the sergeant was called. The sergeant has to show up. Eventually he moves the vehicle out, moves it over to Ridgeway. Okay. So getting back to the point of the rules and regulations that have finally been set for this gentleman. I don't know if you guys have this. I think Mr. Roman
Most
does.
all have seen
but
it or we have
okay,
access.
so number 6 on here states that if, because of the lack of parking on Grasser, the stone berm that's not there, we are now forced to park on the curb. So there's no room in there. So according to this, if he is working in the right of way, he is to park on Ridgeway Drive, which he pulled right up and knew he was illegal, hence why he didn't bring his own vehicle. And the statement below this says the above work in the right of way will be revoked if any of the conditions above are not met. So we're 1 week into a rule book finally, and this guy is already breaking the rules. So it's a major concern. This is bordering on violent. Okay, this is how bad. And I haven't said anything. I've been dealing with this guy since November. And Mike Marr, the Merc at Work, I don't know if any of you are familiar with this gentleman, but this is who he got the property from. Okay, so leading back to what I was going to tell you about this picture, if you look northward up Grasser Street, where the Grasser Street right away is, that is now grass. Okay, that used to be where the telephone poles are, which are poles are 12 foot from the edge of the half road. That used to be an 8 to 10 foot straight drop. Okay. I moved in there back in 1999. I've been at this location for 25 years. Okay. It was backfilled, the Grasser Street right away, maintained by the Land Breaks. Beautiful job. They did a great job maintaining it. What happened is when Mike Marr got the property from Pete Morris, which I don't know how he got that property that Shane now has, Mike backfilled illegally across the Bleecker Paper Road and 30 feet onto Lot B, which this gentleman wants to build on. Okay. He also went across Otter Creek off of Wheeling and coming the other way up the paper road of Bleecker Street, and was dumping concrete. Jim Gray, Mike Hawka, they were dumping. They got caught by the city. He also cut in, which I think is Hayden Street, behind the Dollar General, onto Lee Williams property, and was dumping back there. That's when all this came to a head, and he was shut down by the city. Well, none of that was ever removed. It was covered up with dirt. Okay. And this gentleman wants to go in there and build on all this. And I think there should be some type of testing to see some compression testing or something to see if this is even buildable land. You know, I don't know if you all know that, but if you stand when there's no foliage on the trees and you stand at Otter Creek and you look back at that hill, you can actually see like a sandwich, the topsoil, the concrete, the railroad ties, the rebar, the wood, everything that's buried in there. Okay, so this is a real issue. I think it needs to be addressed. Thirdly, and I'll finish up, is the parking, which everybody seems to have an issue with, and it is an issue. But the reason he parked back there is because he has pissed off the Lutheran home. So he is not allowed, but by riding dirt bikes, ATVs, and being on the Lutheran home property, he's been run off of there. So he's not allowed on the Lutheran home property. So they quit mowing that little area, lot A. They quit mowing that. So he now has to go up there and mow that. So what he does, he brings his truck, his trailer, his mower, his riding mower, pulls into the Grasser Street right away, unloads his mower, goes up there and mows the grass. That's all fine. But he's still illegally parking. He should be forced around on the Wordage Way. And quickly, there's still, to this day, has been no proposal, none, of what he plans to do with this property. Not one. Not even old school like me as a retired iron worker from Local 55 on a bar napkin, okay? Nothing. And so I think this gentleman, I think there should be a cease and desist until something is done with this gentleman, because he's continually breaking the rules. He has destroyed the Bleecker paper road from Grasser to Otter Creek, 30 feet wide, and he has had no permission to even be in there. You know, why is this guy not charged with criminal trespassing, criminal menacing? You know, so the police get called, they come out, they go, we don't deal with zoning. I get it, but it's bordering on violent. He's attacked Mr. Lambrick, who's 80 years old. He's got confrontational with Tim and Aaron, and now me. And I told him I was staying out of it until he pissed me off, and he's pissed me off. So I'm here to just voice that opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Herman. I do know that I saw a couple emails going back and forth today, I think raising the issue, and I think, Mr. Roman, you were made aware of that today, if I saw correctly on that, and we're looking into it and would proceed to do so, if I understand.
And I did, I wasn't aware of what happened Friday. Mr. Mantufo called me today, let me know of the incident. He was upset with that condition, which I don't think he comprehended. And maybe he did and just didn't follow it, but I made it really clear he's not supposed to park on Grasser when he's doing work in the right of way. He challenged us on saying, well, wait a minute, you mean anybody can't park along the curb? And I said, well, the general public can, because you have rules to follow, but you asked for a work in the right of way permit, and that was the condition of it. You were there doing work in the public right of way. Quite honestly, you were, not only was he parked illegal, he wasn't supposed to be parked on Grasser. I made that really clear to him. But he does have permission to work in the right of way. We did grant him a permit. To revoke it, I think at this point, I don't know if that's appropriate, but I did want to talk to the police. He did park illegal. You know, it is a question of, you know, following all other rules that apply, he needs to follow as well. So I think that's something I said in my email. I copied counsel on it, and I said I wanted to talk to her, to Melissa and the police department about it. He does have permission. We call it debrushing, to debrush the right of way. He is preparing a plan that, and I think to some degree, just like any other utility, any other landowner who wants to plan, they do have a right to survey and make a plan out. So that's going on, but it's, I mean, I hate to say it this way, but it is a feud. I mean, there's a feud ongoing, and it's not good.
Sir, we'll ask you not to come back up. We're going to try to just let him answer and move on to the other items. Certainly something that Mr. Roman or any administrators or city council would be more than willing to discuss one-on-one. We're fairly well aware of the situation. I think that's what we're trying to do, is find how we best address what the concerns are. Fair enough. Appreciate it.
This guy's violent also, so it's brutal.
Understand. Thank you, Mr. Herman. Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Herman. Next, we have Will Tresso. And Will, again, we'll have you say your name and your address for the record, please.
Will Tresso, 1500 Blandon, Oregon, Ohio, 43616. I have 3 questions in the statement. The questions are for you, Melissa. What is the city policy on city employees using private social media pages for city business? What is city policy on public servants blocking constituents on social media? And what is the city's policy on unprofessional conduct on social media? And if you want to respond, you can.
Are you prepared or able to respond? Melissa, I don't want to put her on the spot unless she's had time
If
to
you need
prepare.
to, you can email me about it. Because the reason why I'm saying is there's a council member who has blocked me and other constituents in the city of Oregon. And they have been discussing public matters on their personal Facebook pages, which you guys are all about being transparent and, open to communication. Well, that is not open communication or transparent by any way, shape, or form. So I have, put requests in for said information. And with that being said, if this behavior does persist, it's a violation of my First Amendment rights as a citizen of the city of Oregon. And if it's not addressed, it's going to get brought up to the Office of Civil Rights. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tresso. And Mr. Before I say if we can look into that, I don't know that we have a legal policy, social media, Facebook, accessibility. What I would say, Mr. Tresso, just in quick answer to that is, I would say by and large, what we are governed by or try to govern by is what's called sunshine law, which means if there are more than 3 of us, meaning 4 there discussing city business, that becomes a public meeting. It has to be recorded, et cetera, et cetera. Any individual's choice to answer emails, phone calls, Facebook posts, Instagrams, whatever they may be, that is an individual choice of an elected official of what they believe the proper level of engagement is or isn't from their standpoint. So I think most of us have phone, emails. I know I get text messages, I get Facebook messages, I get people that stop by the house. I'm sure everybody up here does in some way, shape, or form. So I do think accessibility, we try to make that. However, what I would say is there's also a little bit of a right to privacy, even as an elected official, where people can kind of tune in or out to whichever access they want. The legal ability to access us, as you would your amendment right, is from up here. In a legal meeting where you have the ability to address the elected officials, and we open that up with these meetings every single time. But how anybody engages in their dialogue with the community is really kind of an individual choice, whether that's social media, whether it's direct, whether it's in-person phone calls. But the rest, I'm sure we can look into and see if there is a set precedent or, ordinance addressing any of the which. Okay, thank you, Mr. Tresso. Next, I have Deb Baker. I'm not sure if it's detachable, but you may be able to bend it down a little bit for her.
Thank you.
And Ms. Baker, I'll just have you state your name and address for the record, please.
Deborah Baker, 3445 Pickle Road. Nothing to do with anything we've talked about before, but just in the hopes of maybe making things a little better in Oregon, making more participation with things we have going on. Metro Press. I don't know if you're from the Metro Press or not. I don't know. Usually I think there's somebody here. This was dated June 10th. I got it Sunday, yesterday. So many things in here are already over with. It's like, okay, the first time you hear about them, they're posted, things that I would want to take the grandkids to, we would have wanted to go to possibly, they're already over with. It's like, it would be nice if they tried to get it out or do it the month before. I mean, this happens month after month. I don't know if anybody else recognizes it or not, but there are things in here in Oregon that people would like to participate, but by the time you get the Metro Press, is the only time I would be notified that it's going on. They try to read through that. There's not a whole lot of other things telling you about things that are going on in the area. Things are already over with. So I don't know what you guys can do, but I thought somebody might be here from the Metro Press. And this would be a good way to bring it up and just say that, it would be nice if, to help us, Oregon, grow and have participation, if they would either put things out a little early. I'm sure they get notified a little earlier that these things are gonna happen. But a lot of them you don't hear about until, I think there was one in here, it said, it was actually Glass City, a kids' day down there. I would have taken the grandkids there, and this doesn't, nothing to do with Oregon, but, would have taken the kids there, but it didn't even get published till the, didn't get ran to the 10th. So that's all I had to say was, I don't know if, are you from actually Metro Press? Oh, I thought it might be you. Well, I know they all the time are, putting things that we talk about at the council meetings in there. So I thought perhaps there was somebody here that actually does the reporting and they could take it back to their management or something and say, look, we need to either get these out on time or put it the month before so we can participate. So that was it.
Very good.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Baker.
Uh-huh.
Just real briefly, what I would say is about the timing is, from the city's perspective, I know on Thursdays and Fridays prior to a meeting on Monday is typically when the agenda comes together and is set. I think the press prints on Thursdays or Fridays, so we almost never are going to be able to make that in advance time to get it published in the paper. We do put it on the city's website, on the Facebook page. Paper things are posted throughout the offices here and other places to try to get word out. The agendas for any committee of the whole for the following official meeting are usually again on the city's website. So we try to do that. I know some members try to put it out there on Facebook pages. It's tough for us with the paper because they typically go to print after we're setting our agendas after they've actually gone to print. No, please.
It has nothing to do with our council. I mean, I see those as not, I've never had an issue with that. The thing I have issues with is the things that if there's activities posted in here, like, let's say, this is not one of them, but Portage River Fest. Okay, I think something that everybody would like to go to, but when you get it and it's already over with.
Yeah.
What's the point?
Fair enough.
That's the only thing I was just saying. It just would be nice if they would put them in there either the week before or get the paper out sooner. So that's all.
We appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Baker. Final person we have this evening is Brenda Gift. And Brenda, again, we'll have you start with your name and your address for the record, please.
Brenda Gift, 490 Northwind Road, Oregon, Ohio. So a few different things. The first one was about the CHIP grant that we're looking at getting. I love grants and I love that we would get funding as part of this. But I'm wondering, it looks like there's $39,000 that we're going to lose off the top. So I'm kind of curious about what fiscal fee Lucas County's getting because they're managing all of it. And I know there's a company that they're hiring to also look at the, implementing the grant. Now, what I found was interesting was grant period is from December 2024 through April of 2027. And I was like, all right, that's a lot of time to get people through. And I was like on Facebook. So I looked on there and on Kathy's page, somebody had answered, hey, it's for repairs of home. And I think Kathy had said that it's home repairs, like $3,500 a piece. But I started looking further and part of the funds can go to, it's part of a federal community development block grant. Now here's the other piece, because I deal with a bunch of grants and I deal with low-income families. And so one question is, if we're going to have these funds distributed to homes, how are we going to help people fill out the forms? And I know it sounds silly, but people need help filling out forms and navigating the system. The other thing though, as I read this, we have 9 months to spend this money. Now the grant says you're not going to get out of it for the 3 years and you better spend what's left, $310,910 in 9 months. If we don't spend that money, it goes back all over Lucas County and we lose control over it. One of the things under the Federal Community Development Block Grant Funds is community centers and crisis and emergency services. And have we considered spending $310, $310,910 on a fire department in Wheeling, improving community service and maybe making a community center over there? Just an option, because I'll tell you, 9 months is super, super fast to get money distributed to people who need it, especially under the income requirements. I think it's 120% of the poverty level. And so there's that. Did we consider everything? The next thing I wanted to ask about was how much did Steve 2 cost for Steve Journey for Boomfest? And if it was over $25,000, how did the bidding process look for that? Because I never saw a vote up here for it. So I was kind of curious, like, how did we come across that cost? My friends hired like real Steve Perry for their home party. So it was kind of interesting. And lastly, as Will was talking, I Googled this really quick. March 15th, 2024, the Supreme Court ruled that public officials cannot block constituents, cannot hide any information. And I know I am not considered a public official at work, but I'm always very careful with what I do with social media. And sometimes I look and I'm like, do I block them or whatever? And I always have to check with our legal, but it's something that you guys, either make, your pages very private and don't deal with the public on your very private pages, or delete them or something, because that came down. There was a case out of Wisconsin, case out of Michigan, it looks like. So just, that's actually legit. So that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Gibb.
Mr. President,
Mayor, go ahead.
just to address Steve O'Gary's purchase order, Brenda, with the city, it was $24,750.
Very good, thank you. As far as the chip part, obviously, we'll have some discussion on that tonight. Hopefully, we'll get a little bit more information. I can't speak to what we've done or not done with that, but I'm sure we can have some debate on that tonight, so. All right, that's all we have. We got one more? Got a late ad? Okay. That's okay. We'll have that item up here, so if you'd make yourself available for questions as we're discussing the agenda item this evening, we appreciate that. Thank you very much. Council, with that said, we have one item on the agenda for consideration this evening. We did not have a committee of the whole meeting last week, so we will need to add item 100 of 2024 to this evening's agenda.
Mr. President,
Mr. Reeves.
so moved.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves.
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Pauloff. We have a motion by Mr. Reeves, seconded by Mr. Pauloff, or Mrs. Pauloff, excuse me, to move item 100 to tonight's agenda. Council, are there any objections? Hearing none, item 100 is added to the agenda, and we will start with that item, which is being presented by Mayor Michael Safarian and Finance Director Nick Roman. And Mr. Roman, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, this ordinance would authorize us to enter into an agreement with Lucas County and Maumee to apply for what is called the CHIP Grant, Community Housing Impact and Preservation Program. We have done this since 2015. Originally, we had done it by ourselves up until then, and we continuously ran into issues, from my understanding, in terms of getting contractors to do it, putting out the mortgages and collecting the payments. And so once we found out that the Ohio Department of Development proposed that groups go in together with other cities and it would help with administering the program, we were all in on that, and we were happy to get the CHIP program out of being ran from the finance department. So now it is ran through Lucas County, and Kleinfelder is helping with that. So I'm hoping you could help me answer questions, because we have not been heavily involved in the actual administration of the CHIP program.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Roman. First question I have, just for clarification, is the $310,000 an accurate amount that needs to be utilized within?
So that's what will be applied for the city.
Okay, so we would apply for the 310,000. What we would get may be different than what that amount is.
Correct.
Okay, and the timeline of usage, is that within the 3-year time piece? I'm gonna go this way for a second, Nick. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
what was your name, ma'am? Brandy, if you could speak to that, I'll say the functions format of the CHIP grant itself.
Thank you.
It is a total of $1.5 million, I believe, almost. But we partner with the city of Maumee and Oregon, and we combine that because we are not an entitlement community. So they do add in program income that you guys have
Brenda?
allocated for this program. Sorry, yeah, sorry, might not. No.
Yeah, a little closer to the
Okay,
mic. It'll
Sorry
carry you
about
better.
that. So the 9-month period is just an estimate. It is a first come, first served basis program. So we do try to allocate, between the cities and the county. However, if we don't get enough applicants, we will just keep going with the way they come into the office. And in regards to completing the applications, filling out the documentation, I'm the one that helps them. So I'm here, and I'm also a resident of Oregon as well. So I am around here, live very close. So basically it's a partnership. It is like a 2-3 month. It is due in December. The funds will not be released until like March or April of 2025. Then we have till 2027 to spend the $1 million. You could also get more applicants in Oregon, and you may be spending more money in Oregon. So it really depends on the community and who wants to apply.
The request basis.
Yes.
Mr.
Fair
President,
enough. Mr. Reeves.
thank you. Brenda, just.
Brandy, sorry.
Brittany, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
That was Brenda, I'm sorry. I was wondering, how are people notified throughout the city?
We will market the program. This is a competitive program, so it is not a guaranteed grant. So it is up to the state to decide if Lucas County will be granted these funds. So once that is decided, I will come to the city of Oregon, market the program. I will hit, the libraries, the area of an aging community, any low income area, and you must be a owner of the property. It is not for renters. You cannot be a renter or a landlord. So it's owner occupied. So we do come market the program. You previously had a consultant, Great Lakes Community Action. They are not obviously going to be administering that program this year. That will be Kleinfelder, which will come through my office.
Mr. President.
Thank you.
if
Please
I
go ahead,
may,
Mr. Reeves.
What would be like, I know it's for lower income.
Yes.
What is like, is there a base,
It's 80% LMI.
80% of,
LMI, so it depends on how many people live in the home. And it has to be under 80%. It cannot go above the 80% LMI. We do have flyers that will be distributed throughout Oregon. We could also put them into the mailings for like the water department, anything that goes out into the community. We'll put it, on Facebook, all the social media accounts that you guys have available, put it in the press. Because besides Lucas County, I also administer Wood County. So they're, back and forth. So we do try to put it out there as much as we can.
Mr. President, still? Thank
Go ahead,
you.
you have the floor. Mr. Reeves.
Is there a minimum, I don't know how to really ask this. I mean, for an elderly person, I mean, that meets that standard, is there like a maximum number for the repair?
No, yes. For a home repair, they can go up to $30,000. For a private owner rehabilitation, they can go up to $85,000.
Okay, thank you. I'm finished.
All right, thank you, Mr. Reeves. Any other council members' questions? Mrs. Ackerman.
I have a question. In the information that we were given, there's a CHIP activities plan budget. And it's probably just that I don't know, don't
That's okay.
understand it. But the partnering jurisdiction, so Lucas County, when it comes to a home repair, for example, the activity budget is $143,180. But then Maumee and Oregon, a home repair, you can get up to $85,910. So why is there a difference in those
I'd have to
numbers?
see what you're looking at, because I'm sorry.
And I'm not sure what it means by that. Thank you.
So because Lucas County is the original grantee, and you are partnering with them, we have to allocate just in the partnership agreement for the application. So when we enter this information, they want to know how many we're going to target in Oregon, how many we're going to target in Maumee, and so forth. For Lucas County, private owner rehabilitation is at the 85,000 limit, and we're going to try to target 3 households in Lucas County, specifically Maumee 3, and then City of Oregon 3. So we're trying to divide it equally between the 3. So that's what that also states. So for home repair, we're going to do 5 and then 3 and 3. And because they're the grantee.
They get more?
Yes.
Okay, that's because what I read said it was for low and mid-income. That could, what the information I saw said, it wasn't just low income, it was low and mid-income
It
housing.
is LMI only for CHIP. Because
Okay,
we are using home dollars, so we have to abide by the HUD rules.
okay. So then that table, the Lucas County, so outside of Oregon and Maumee, those people, but excluding Toledo, right?
It definitely excludes the city of Toledo. This
Right.
does not include the city of Toledo. They
But-
have their own CHIP program because they're an entitlement. So they get direct funds from HUD.
So the others, say like Jerusalem Township or Sylvania or whatever, they could get up to 145?
No, they have to reside in the city of Oregon.
No, I'm saying for the rest of Lucas County, that top one that has
Yes.
5 outcomes? Okay. I didn't understand the discrepancy in the amount available.
And really, it comes down to first come, first serve. Honestly, I could send out 100 applications and get maybe 5 responses.
Thank you.
For some reason, people are just,
That's crazy.
it's hard. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ackerman. Council, any additional questions?
Mr. President.
Comments? Mr. Drake.
What was your name again? He confused me
My
down
name
there.
is Brandy
Brandy.
Cowell. It's
Brady?
C-O-W, Brandy
Randy, okay.
Cowell, yes.
How long, you mentioned the application. How long does the process work, once it's turned in? Is it a long drawn out or?
No, once I turn it in, I will do the income eligibility, and then the city of Oregon will be notified who that homeowner is and where the property is located. The housing inspector will do lead testing because it's required if we're using home dollars. And then we send it out to bid to our contractors. So I would say from beginning to end, maybe 3 to 4 months to get to contract with construction.
Okay, and is the statement Brenda made, is that true if it's not used within?
That is not true.
Okay. All right, thank you. That's it.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Drake. Council, any additional questions? Anything further from the administration?
Thank you.
Thank you.
No more questions. I would assign item 100 of 2024 as ordinance 100 of 2024 and ask Ms. Snyder to read it into the record.
Authorizing the mayor and finance director to enter into an agreement with Lucas County and the city of Maumee to file a combined application under the Community Housing Impact and Preservation Program to address local housing needs and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Ms. Snyder. Council.
Mr. President,
Mr. Reeves.
I move for passage of ordinance 100 of 2024 as an emergency measure. Excuse me.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves.
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Pauloff. We have a motion by Mr. Reeves, seconded by Mrs. Pauloff for ordinance 100 of 2024. Ms. Snyder, would you please take a roll call vote of council?
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mrs. Pauloff?
Yes.
Mrs. Ackerman?
Yes.
Mr. Drake?
Yes.
Mr. Horniak?
Yes.
Mr. Solander?
Yes.
Mr. Wollenzak?
Yes. Thank you, council. Ordinance 100 of 2024 does pass with a vote of 7 yeas and 0 nays. That would conclude all the agenda items we have scheduled for this evening. We will move on to the mayor's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I wanted to mention something about Boomfest and the finances with Boomfest. We allocated $90,000, which was $60,000 of city money and $30,000, which I expected to collect in donations. It appears that we will get more than $30,000 worth of donations, and the different businesses wish if they contribute that the money would actually go for Boomfest. So if I'm able to solicit additional money, I would be asking council to appropriate above the $30,000 worth of donations if I get more than $30,000 worth of donations, which I hope to. I hope to get an additional $10,000 to $20,000 to make it total expenditures between 100 and 120 or 110, between 100 and $110,000. So just to keep everybody up to tune on what we expect to collect, well, I hope we get an additional $50,000, but I would think it's realistic to believe we will get, instead of 30, 40 or 50 in contributions. It's very tough, as Mr. Roman did. We have a very stringent way of dishing out money at the city of Oregon, and some of these people make their contributions in a certain quarter of their the way they do their financing. So sometimes the contributions come in after Boomfest has already happened. So we'll get commitments from the people, and I'll try to keep all this information to you so you know what's going on. Not trying to pull on any fast one, because at the end of the day, I'm looking forward to do it next year, and I'm not out trying to pull one over on you. Just trying to let you know and provide the best event is possible that we can do. That's it.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Mazer.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Mazer. Mr. Roman.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Roman. Ms. Purpura, just keeping you on your toes.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves. Ms. Paulo.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to give a shout out and kudos to the police department. When my children were in school, we didn't have Safety Town. And I was fortunate to attend Safety Town this year. And it was wonderful. Thank you for loving our children and teaching them how to be safe. I know the fire department had a hand in it as well, but the police, I don't give enough kudos to. So thank you for all the hard work with that. It was a wonderful ceremony. I know you guys you have one more class this week. So, and you guys have put through a lot of kids. So thank you for that. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Paulo. Mr. Walczak.
No report this evening, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Walczak. Ms. Sackerman.
I agree with Ms. Pauloff. My kids had Safety Town, and every time I drive down Star and I see those little buildings, and I picture them doing that, and it was really sweet, and it is something that's really appreciated. And I wanted to remind everyone that there's a tree commission meeting at 4 o'clock on Tuesday in the community room over by the police department. I wanted to ask Joel if you have any more info on the Synovus tree contribution.
Yes, they are, Mr. President.
Yeah, absolutely. Go
Ackerman. Yes, I met with Ron last week. We talked about it again. It's just a matter of the tree commission coming together and putting a plan together and knowing exactly how many trees. We're looking at it somewhere between 100 and 125 trees.
Great, thank you. And not part of my committee, but I wanted to ask the mayor, since Oregon's like the latest fireworks display for the 4th of July in the state, if you could please just, people ask me, is this for the 4th of July? Is it for Independence Day? And I said, well, yeah, I would think so. And would you just put a statement out there saying, yes, this is how Oregon is observing our Independence Day celebration, so they do know that that's what the event is about? Please.
I'd be delighted to.
Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Ms. Sackerman. Mr. Slander.
No report from my regular committee. Just one thing. I had a friend contact me regarding the gravel area across from Veterans Park out on Bay Shore, and it was quickly taken care of. So I wanted to first thank Paul Roman. I reached out to, and then he had kind of directed me over to Henninger and the streets department. And I just want to make sure that the credit goes to where it should be. So thank you to the streets department for going out there and getting it taken care of very well and so quickly. You guys are the ones that do the blood, sweat, and tears out there. So we just sit behind the desk. So we're not as necessary as you are. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you, Mr. Slander. Mr. Drake.
No report from my committee. I just want to mention that this weekend, Friday and Saturday, is the Polish picnic at Oakshade Grove. I want to give a shout out to the street department on the new service road there that goes where the new downtown's going to be. I drove through there today, and who's ever mowing it and taking care of it, it looks really nice. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Drake. And from my standing committee, we've got an item to discuss under further business this evening. However, I do want to share with council a thank you card that was addressed to the mayor and to city council. It says, "Our family can't say enough for all the help in making our uncle come home to Oregon and finally rest in peace after 80 years. Please make sure to continue to honor all of Oregon vets for all Memorial Days to come, from the family of Staff Sergeant Jack Wyndham Coy." So thank you to everybody who had a good hand in that. And thank you to Staff Sergeant's family for supporting us. With that said, we'll move on into the last item we really have for this evening, which is further business before council. And what I would say, I want to preface this just a little bit. In front of each of you council members, you have, as we discussed the process, we had 24 different people volunteer. We had asked each council member to make a designation of 5 selections, of which we picked the top, what was going to be 10. We wound up with 9 because there was a 7-way tie for 10th place. So we will utilize 9 that are on here. The information is before you. And again, our appreciation and thanks go to everybody who did volunteer and sign up to be part of the committee. We do appreciate that, and we will take you up on your offer. So even if you're not on the steering committee, we will reach out and find you and ask you to take part in subcommittees and other activities as we have moving forward. The one recommendation I'd make with this, and I'll leave it open to council's comments, questions, as well as the administration after that, is a reminder, as I put in my letter to everybody earlier in the week when we were asking for everybody's 5 nominees. What I would try to remind us all is nobody who volunteered asked to be publicly debated. I would more or less suggest that we proceed to just a vote and move forward in this. If anybody has a statement of how they selected their people, what they wanted to do, if you wanted to mention somebody, I will just tell you as a council member, I will not have dialogue about the individuals on here in public forum because I don't believe they asked for that. So I would just ask anybody that wants to make note of anybody or anybody they've recommended, just be very professional and very leery in how we make that. And let's keep it not a debate, but a statement of support if we could. And with that, I'd open up to any other discussion, or Mr. Mazur, if you have anything to add.
Mr. President.
Yes.
And council, thank you. Just what you have in front of you, down below the list is, so everybody on the list, first of all, the ones in purple are the ones that had 3 or more votes. The ones in blue had 2 votes. The map, the legend down below kind of shows where everybody's address is. And we did that because in the beginning of this, we said that it would make more sense if we had more stratification of residents in the city that are a part of this steering committee. So yeah, the ones with the little green flags are the ones that had are the 4 highest, call it vote getters. So that's all I had to add.
Thank you, Mr. Mazur. Council, any questions, any comments to be made before we move forward?
Mr. President.
Mr. Slander.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to, just in general, kind of thank everybody who did put their name in the hat. And thank all those who have made it this far, as well as the ones who will be selected. You've made it very, very difficult. I will say that. So, which is a good thing. So thank you for taking the time to put your name in the hat. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Slander. Ms. Ackerman, do you have?
Mr. President,
Go right ahead.
I'm sorry I even filled that out because I misunderstood and I thought that even as a council person that I still needed to apply. So that got put in the wrong group of people and I hope it didn't, that everyone understood that I was just a little too overzealous and was in the wrong category altogether. So sorry about that.
No worries. Thank you, Ms. Ackerman. Council, anything additional? Mr. Drake?
Yeah, I thought of this earlier today. I see the list of people that are already on there, like the economic development person and, a few others that were appointed or picked by whoever. And then they're gonna have two council people on it and then an alternate, which I know you're the alternate. I'm just curious and I just want opinions. I'm not trying to start a fight with anybody, but I personally think, and this is the first time we've really talked deep about this. I feel like I'm waiting to the last second, but I almost feel like it'd be better to have two more citizens than three council people or two, because it's gonna go in front of council anyways. So that's just my thought. I mean, you might.
You
think
mean
I'm-
the plan in total?
Correct.
Okay.
So I'm just throwing that out. Some might like it, some probably don't, but that's just my thought.
Okay. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Drake. Anybody further? Mr. Roman?
Just a comment. I didn't know the full spread out of where everyone lived until tonight, but I noticed there's no one south of Navarre. Is that correct on here?
Yeah.
It's just that, because I know there was a list of people, but that may be not who council voted for, correct?
That would be correct. Yeah, according to this list, there is nobody south of Navarre. And off memory, I don't know that there were that many volunteers from south of Navarre.
There's good 5 or 6 that are, but I'm not out to say one or the other, and I'm not shy from giving my opinion, and I live south of Navarre, so.
It's all right. We
But,
appreciate that.
yeah.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Roman.
And Mr. President,
Mr. Mazer?
I just want to point out that this is a steering committee too, that it's not, this group is not the ones putting the plan together. It's just guiding the process. So just want to reiterate that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Fair enough. Council, anything additional? At this point, I would recommend that council, you should all have a form in front of you that looks something like this. List of names, small map at the bottom. If you'd initial the top, go ahead and mark the 4 individuals that you would like to see selected for the committee. Maybe we'll take a 5-minute recess, tally them up, reconvene, and we can announce those 4. Do we have any play along music or anything, Ms. Snyder?
4 or 2?
We have 4 community members. Yeah.
Mr. President.
Yeah.
Originally, the consultant had recommended 2, I believe. Paul, I don't know if you were in that meeting or not, but we actually asked them, hey, we'd like to up it to 4. So to address Mr. Drake's, Councilman Drake's comment, actually, we kind of pushed that to bump that number up to 4 when it was down from, I think it was at like 2. So, but if council decides, we want 6 on there, that works too.
Okay.
Mr. President?
Yes, Mr. Roman.
And again, the steering committee is kind of guiding overall of what's fair and transparent and trying to get people to come in, but it's just a general guide. I mean, really, council, I hope all of you are going to read through this thing and really weigh in on it. You're all going to vote on whether you accept it or not. So you're clearly involved. And I think even administration wise, we're reviewing it as well. And I think, if you're not in the steering committee, that doesn't mean you're not going to shouldn't go to the public meetings. You should be well involved. I would hope that anybody who's interested show up at these public meetings. I mean, that's extremely important. So I don't, the steering committee, if you think you're not in it, you're not involved, that's not true. It's very much, you should be very much involved coming to the public meetings. Just want to highlight that.
Very good point. Thank you, Mr. Roman.
Mr. President,
Mr. Drake.
the two colors, I know purple's higher than blue.
Yes.
So none of these people are in it as of right now.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, this is the finalist list, if you will, and the colors designated, those in purple had 3 nominations or more, those in blue had 2 nominations. I can't really recess while we're doing this until they hand them in, can I? You can't. I can't really recess until they actually hand them in. I would think. Yeah, I think we gotta do this during.
I don't even know if we have to recess. How
Well,
long it takes you to.
Just depends on
hand 'em
how
out.
quickly we can do it. I was just asking whether we could recess because we are doing something official. We can't, so we gotta just kind of sit it out and wait.
Put the pressure. Just give him 5 minutes.
I wish I had Jeopardy music right now. And I would ask as you complete them, go ahead and fold them in half and we'll give them down to Ms. Snyder to review.
There you go. There, yeah.
Council, reviewing the results from the vote, we do have a clearly identified 3. We do have a tie in 4th place. So council, as your preference, do you wish to revote? Do you wish to put 5 on? Or do you want to just cast a voice vote between the last 2 individuals? Mr. Walzak.
Mr. President, but my recommendation is just put the 5 on.
Okay, fair
Thank
enough.
Mr. President, I
Mrs.
second that
Snyder?
idea. Yep, I
Very
think it's a
good.
good idea.
Council, we all concur. Any objection to adding 5? Makes life easy. All right, so the 5 individuals that will be onto the steering committee is Brenda Gift, who's here tonight, Bill Myers, James Hodder, Jack Nagy, and Ann Meyer. Thank you, Counselor, for your involvement in administration, for helping with that. Thank you, Ms. Snyder, who has spent a good part of the last few days herding us butterflies to put this together. Got it. Just make sure I'm reading my tick marks correctly. The 2 or 3 would be
Oh,
fourth.
1,
and fifth. They'd be
2,
tied for the last
3,
two spots.
4. I'm tracking what you're putting down. Thank you. Yes, you're
Do
correct.
you agree? All right, thank you. All right. Thank you and congratulations to the 5 individuals that will be part of that steering committee. But again, the 19 folks that were not selected to be part of the steering committee, we do fully hope that they will engage and be part of the entire process. As we go through different meetings and structure this, the steering committee more or less is going to pick process. So now we may get to the stickier end of this and we may punt to next week anyhow, so we'll see. So the committee recommendation is that we would have 2 council members serving as part of the steering committee. I've had a couple of people unofficially ask me or mention that they had interest in saying that. So I guess at this point in time, I would ask, is there anybody on council that wishes to be considered for appointment to the steering committee?
Mr. President,
Mr. Slander?
just having a problem with my button there. Yes, I am interested.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Slander.
You're welcome.
Ms. Ackerman, did I see your light on?
Yes, sir.
You got to say it.
I would love to be considered for it.
Mr.
What
Wallenstein?
is the process going to be for council members? I was in a conversation with Mr. Roman. You may have just said it. I apologize. Is it for only 2 people asked? Those are the 2. How do we go about selecting? What if we have all 7 of us say that we want to do it?
That'd be a
What's the
wonderful
process?
problem to have, Mr. Wallenstein.
I don't think that'll happen, but I just want to know what the process is for council.
Yeah, my thought process is this, council, and if you agree, is first of all, to see all who are interested. I've had 3 people reach out to me and say they were interested. I think if there was 3, I think we would look potentially to seat 3. If there's 7, then I think we would have to work through a process of nominating, as we would for any other committee or leadership role. We would nominate and second and vote onto each individual if all 6 or 7 people wanted to serve within that. I'm kind of, as the chair of committee, a de facto member, so I don't need to be considered for that. But I would take it to, depending on how many council members are interested, we would kind of address process after that. Thank you, Mr. Wallensack. Could make this very easy. Council, anybody else wishing to volunteer to serve as part of the steering committee?
Mr. President,
Mr. Wallensack.
I'll put my name forward.
Thank you, Mr. Wallensack. Council, anybody additional? All right, everybody's quiet. So, council, we have 3 individuals interested in serving on the committee. So first question is, council, do we want to pare that down to 2, or are we comfortable with 3 council members on? We have a recommendation for 3. Council, does anybody concur, agree, disagree? Concur? All right, so 3 council members that will serve will be Steve Solander, Beth Ackerman, and Dennis Wallensack, with our thanks to all 3 of you for your commitment to serve on the committee and be part of that process. We thank you for your time in advance, because it will be much. And I will kind of be a drop-in member of that committee as we kick off and get going. So appreciate the work that everybody's going to put in with that. That said, anything else regarding planning committee, steering committee? Mr. Mazur?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Just wanted to mention that we rescheduled that first meeting to the 19th, which is Juneteenth. So we thought it would be best to move it back one day to the 20th to stay off the holiday.
Okay.
So
Thank
it
you, Mr.
will be,
Mazur.
the first meeting will be June 20th, 6 PM in this room.
Very good. So noted. And I'm assuming we'll have that up on all of our publications and websites.
And Mr. President, that's not a public meeting.
That's the steering
It's just the
committee.
steering
That's just
committee.
the
Yep.
organizational, more or less.
Yep.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Thank you, Mr. Mazur. Council, before we close on other business before council, is there anything additional on the planning process or the committee?
Mr. President,
Mr. Drake?
one last question, and I believe you said it earlier. I just wanted to be clear. So if anybody that's sitting out here right now wants to come to those steering meetings, they're welcome to.
I do believe they are open.
Mr.
Are
President.
they open to the public, but not?
They're not public
participation?
meetings. Yeah, they're not public meetings.
So they can't.
I mean, it's a steering committee to help guide the process. So we're limiting it to not having too many cooks in the kitchen. That's why it's not a come one, come all kind of thing. We'll have those at public meetings, but these will be closed meetings so the steering committee can do the work to just guide the process.
They're going to do a lot of picking of timelines, dates, activities,
Yeah.
how it's promoted, things of that nature, but they're not actually, the steering committee is not necessarily debating the plan. The steering committee is, okay, let's do a online forum, let's do a paper questionnaire, let's be out at Boom
What are the
Fest,
best-
asking opinions. It's going to be more structured to how do we go about gathering the information. I think between the consultants, they'll come back with a game plan based on what they've learned. So I think the steering committee, again, is basically just helping to guide and drive the process. I think the decisions will come from the subcommittees, the working committees, as well as the finalization from our consultants,
Okay.
or OHM.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Drake. Council, anything additional? All right. That's the last thing we had here. Council, just to put out there, my thoughts, if anybody objects, I'd ask you to share that at this point in time. On July 1st would be our first meeting of July, which obviously is a holiday week. Some of you may have plans. My thought was to just for now cancel the July 1st committee of the whole meeting as it being a holiday week, and we would proceed with our first regular meeting being the 8th. Unless council has any objections to canceling in advance the July 1st meeting just because of the holiday week. Any objections? Okay. That said, next meeting will be the Monday, the 17th for committee of the whole. And with nothing else before us, I'll seek a motion to adjourn.
Mr. President,
Mr. Reeves.
so moved.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves.
Second?
Seconded by Mr. Slander. Council, any objections? Meeting is adjourned.